Rex Ryan just got completely embarrassed on live TV after taking a harsh shot at Shedeur Sanders over that viral miming clip. But veteran insider Mary Kay Cabot wasn't having it. She fired back with facts that tore apart his entire argument. The studio flipped instantly. Now, fans and analysts alike are dragging Rex for going way too far on Shedeur Sanders.
Him really, really, really strongly and well. And this was a reaction to that. And we have to sometimes remember that these are very, very young men. People come into the NFL with different levels of maturity.
This much relevance, this deep into the regular season.
Yeah.
So it's not even about, before we get to the point, we have to understand what the reality is.
Yeah.
When Shedeur does anything, it's always critique. What I don't like is you may not be able to relate to what he's doing or how he's doing it, but you can't control and make it be what you want it to be, because it's not that. When you hear Rex Ryan's remarks, these things are something that he's spewing without actually having facts to back it. And if you do have facts, Rex Ryan, you have to come forth with the source. The issue is, get your ass in the front row and study.
Rex Ryan made a massive mistake, one that's now blowing up in his face. On national television, he went all in, absolutely tearing down Shedeur Sanders with one of the harshest takes of his career. He thought it was just another hot segment, another chance to sound bold at the analyst desk. But this time, his target didn't fight back with words. Instead, Shedeur answered with silence, literally. At a post-game press conference, he mimed his responses, saying nothing while saying everything. The clip went viral within minutes. Critics jumped on him, labeling it immature, arrogant, even unprofessional. But then came the twist. Mary Kay Cabot, one of the NFL's most respected insiders, stepped in and flipped the entire narrative. In her view, this wasn't defiance. It was discipline. Shedeur wasn't being reckless. He was being smart. He knew that silence speaks louder than sound bites. Now, fans are rethinking everything, and Rex Ryan is realizing he may have just underestimated the calmest player in the league.
Shedeur is a dynamic player. He's got a lot of personality. He has done a lot of things right here. He's working really, really hard to come up the learning curve. And this is the first time in his life and his career that he's had to be a backup. And it's difficult. It's difficult. He's trying to be patient. He's trying to do the right things. But it cannot be easy for him to believe that he can go out there and start football games and have to be the third string quarterback right now.
I understand why he did what he did. And I'm a Shedeur fan, and I hope he gets a fair chance at some point, somewhere, to maximize his skills, whatever they may be. We won't find out until he has a chance to play.
Let's rewind for a second. You've probably seen the clip by now. Shedeur Sanders, the Browns' third-string quarterback, standing in front of reporters, completely silent. No words, no answers, just gestures and miming. The media didn't know what to make of it. Cameras kept rolling. And within minutes, the internet turned it into a spectacle. Critics piled on fast. What's wrong with this kid? Does he think he's above the media? Another young star getting too much attention too soon. The moment blew up instantly, sparking one of the most polarizing debates of the NFL season.
I do not think a lot of teams are willing to risk what's mounting in circus-like attention that he brings naturally. So therefore, the Cleveland Browns were stuck with this idea. If we cut Shedeur, that will be bad for business.
That wouldn't be relevant at all.
Bad for business. Business being, he's good for business on our roster. If we cut him, he's going to be picked up by somebody. When have we ever had a person on our roster to move the needle? We have the most dynamic defensive player in the game today, and he is a person that is extremely meek. He's a person that does not scream to the top of his lungs. I don't even know what his sack celebration is.
No.
He goes to work, he shows up, he just sacks quarterbacks, wreak havoc, and get on out the way.
Yeah.
That's who Myles Garrett is.
Yeah. Correct.
The Cleveland Browns have never had a player in modern day that pushes the needle like Shedeur Sanders. And I'm saying this with the additions of them saying, hey, what about Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield didn't push the needle like Shedeur Sanders.
Understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm guessing that Shedeur Sanders didn't want the words to come out of his mouth because he didn't want to overshadow Dylan Gabriel's day. He knows that he is a content machine. I have heard him say that. He knows exactly when he steps into a room, it's all about him all the time. There was an encounter in training camp where a player was speaking at a podium and Shedeur walked out to go to his podium and everybody started following Shedeur and he stopped dead in his tracks and he told the PR staff under his breath, he wasn't trying to do it for show, I'm not going to talk until Jerome is done speaking. I kind of overheard that, but it was a cool just example of how he knows that he steals the spotlight all the time. So I actually think he was probably trying not to steal Dylan Gabriel's day and sort of keeping his mouth shut while also getting a point across. So again, these guys are young and it doesn't always play out the way maybe they think it will, but I think that was probably his intent.
But here's what most people completely missed. This wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't a tantrum. It was a calculated response to Rex Ryan, the former NFL head coach turned ESPN analyst, who had just gone scorched earth on Shedeur Sanders. And when I say scorched earth, I mean he didn't just critique his play. He went after the person. He questioned Shedeur's maturity, his attitude, even his future in the league. It was harsh, personal, and way over the line. Mary Kay Cabot, a veteran Browns insider with decades of experience, said Rex ripped him really, really, really strongly. That's not analysis. That's an attack.
But it would have been so easy to just walk in and say, I'm happy for Dylan. I'm here to support Dylan. I'm here to continue to learn. And I'll be ready to go when my number is called. It's that simple. And that would have created a headline, but it wouldn't have created a mess. And I think there's a difference. Everything he does is going to create a headline. But you don't need to create a mess along with the headline.
Now, most rookies and young players in this league, they fire back. They'd hop on Twitter, drop a cryptic Instagram story, or vent in a post-game interview that only makes the situation worse. But Shedeur Sanders didn't do that. He chose something far more powerful, silence. And that silence is what's driving everyone crazy. Here's where Mary Kay Cabot steps in, with a perspective that completely flips the narrative. When she was asked about the now viral miming incident, she didn't pile on like everyone else. She didn't take the easy route of saying, he's young, he'll learn. Instead, she defended him. Not with excuses, but with context, understanding, and genuine insight into who Shedeur Sanders is behind the cameras. Mary Kay said something that made everyone stop and rethink the entire situation. I was surprised that he handled it like that. She admitted it caught her off guard. But what she said next was the part that mattered most. This wasn't random. This wasn't attitude. This was a direct reaction to what Rex Ryan said. Rex came at him hard. He made it personal. And Shedeur, instead of clapping back with words that could be twisted, dissected, and turned into clickbait, chose to respond without giving anyone ammunition. Think about that for a second. You're 23 years old, hearing a respected analyst tear into your character on national television. You're frustrated, maybe even hurt. And in that moment, instead of firing back, you decide to stay silent. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you know exactly what happens the second you open your mouth. That's when Mary Kay dropped a bombshell. He knows that he is a content machine. Those were her exact words. Shedeur Sanders knows the game. He's fully aware that every word he speaks becomes a headline. Every quote gets clipped. Every reaction gets analyzed. Every emotion becomes a debate show segment. But here's the kicker. Mary Kay revealed something from training camp that proved he's not just aware of it. He's actively managing it. During camp, another player, Jerome Ford, was speaking at the podium. Shedeur came out of the facility, headed somewhere, but when he saw the cameras and reporters, he stopped cold. Quietly, under his breath, He told the PR staff he wouldn't talk until Jerome finished. He didn't want to steal the spotlight. He didn't want his presence to overshadow his teammate. Mary Kay overheard it. She called it a cool example of his self-awareness, how he knows that his name, his brand, his father's legacy all create gravity. And sometimes that gravity pulls attention away from people who deserve it. So when Dylan Gabriel was announced as the starting quarterback for the Browns and Shedeur showed up to that press conference miming his answers, Mary Kay believes he wasn't being defiant. He was being considerate. He didn't want his words, his inevitable headline-making words, to take away from Dylan's moment. Did it work? No, obviously not. The miming ended up being the biggest story of the day. But Mary Kay believes his intent was genuine. He was trying to stay quiet while still acknowledging the media, trying to make a point without making it about himself. And honestly, that's a level of thought most 23-year-olds don't have. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Shedeur Sanders is the third-string quarterback. Third string. For a guy who was a Heisman candidate, who led Colorado to some of their biggest wins in years, who was projected as a first or a second-round pick, this has to be brutal. Mary Kay said it herself. This is the first time in his life and career that he's had to be a backup. And it's not easy. Imagine that. You've been the guy your entire life. High school star. College starter from day one. Your father, Dylan Sanders, builds a program around you. You're on magazine covers, in commercials, the face of college football. Then you get to the NFL, and suddenly you're not just a backup, you're third string. You're holding a clipboard, running scout team reps, watching others get the snaps you believe should be yours. Mary Kay said it best. It cannot be easy for him to believe he can start football games and have to be the third-string quarterback right now. She's right. That's a mental battle, a daily grind to stay ready, stay confident, stay patient when everything inside you is screaming that you should be playing. And here's what makes it tougher. Shedeur is working. Mary Kay made that clear. He's working really, really hard to climb that learning curve. This isn't a guy sulking in the corner or causing drama in the locker room. He's studying, he's learning, he's trying to be a professional. But then Rex Ryan goes on TV and rips him apart. Not about his play, because he hasn't even played, but about who he is, how he carries himself, the attention he gets. And that's when it gets personal. So Shedeur responded, not with anger, but with silence. Controlled, calculated, maybe a little petty, but also kind of genius. Mary Kay made a point that a lot of people need to hear. These are very, very young men. People come into the NFL with different levels of maturity. She compared it to what happened in Tennessee, when head coach Brian Callahan had to publicly address a player's comment calling his team ass. Different players handle things differently. Some are media trained from day one. Some are naturally mature. Some are still figuring it out. And Mary Kay's message was simple. He didn't mean any harm. I don't think Shedeur meant any harm. He's got a lot of personality. He's done a lot of things right. He's trying to navigate a situation nobody prepared him for. Then she added something that hit home. I'm a Shedeur fan, and I hope he gets a fair chance somewhere to maximize his skills. That's not a random fan talking. That's a respected NFL insider going on record saying she believes in him. She wants to see him succeed. She thinks he deserves a Real shot. But she did have one fair criticism. The miming moment overshadowed what should have been Dylan Gabriel's day. That was her only disappointment. Not that Shedeur responded to Rex Ryan. Not that he was frustrated, but that his execution ended up stealing the spotlight. She explained it perfectly. I don't know that he made that connection. Maybe it's just being not yet 25. Your brain isn't fully formed, and you don't always understand the connection between your actions and the consequences. That's real. That's honest. Shedeur probably thought staying quiet was the best way to keep the focus on his teammate. But he didn't anticipate that miming would create an even bigger circus. Mary Kay said most people don't get why he did it, because they're not paying attention to Rex Ryan. And that's the truth. If you didn't see Rex's comments, if you don't know the context, you just see a clip of Shedeur acting weird and think, what's this kid's problem? But if you understand the pressure, if you know the spotlight he's under, if you realize he's trying to balance authenticity with not overshadowing teammates, then it starts to make sense. Mary Kay even offered another explanation that made Shedeur look even more thoughtful. I'm guessing Shedeur didn't want words to come out of his mouth because he didn't want to overshadow Dylan Gabriel's day. He knew if he spoke, it would become about him. So he tried to acknowledge the media without giving them sound bites. Did it backfire? Absolutely. But was the intent genuine? Yes. So let's ask the real question. Was Shedeur Sanders being immature, or was he being self-aware? Was it a mistake, or was it a 23-year-old trying to navigate an impossible situation? And more importantly, why is Rex Ryan throwing haymakers at a third-string quarterback who hasn't even played a snap? Let's be real. Mary Kay Cabot laid out exactly what Shedeur should have done, and she's not wrong. It would have been so easy for him to walk in and say, "I'm happy for Dylan. I'm here to support him. I'll stay ready when my number's called." That's it. 5 sentences. Clean, professional, mature. That would have created a headline, but not a mess. Mary Kay said it best. Everything he does will create a headline. But there's a difference between a headline and a circus. And that's the truth. Shedeur could have handled it better, sure. But here's the question nobody's asking. Why are we holding a 23-year-old backup to a higher standard than a 60-year-old former NFL coach turned ESPN analyst? Rex Ryan has been in this league for decades. He knows exactly how the media works. He knows the weight of his words. And he still chose to go after a kid who hasn't played a single snap, really, really strongly, as Mary Kay put it. That's not analysis. That's personal. So where's the accountability? Where's the discussion about whether Rex should be using his platform to tear down young players trying to find their footing? Because let's be honest, Shedeur is frustrated, working behind the scenes, doing everything right, and Rex decided to pile on. That's what doesn't sit right. Here's the thing about Shedeur Sanders. People either love him or hate him. He's unapologetically himself. He's got swagger, confidence, personality. And in today's NFL, where players are trained to give the same canned, boring answers, Shedeur stands out. He's a content machine. He's box office. He's must-watch TV. But that comes with a price. When you're that magnetic, every move gets magnified. Every decision gets debated. Every mistake becomes a headline. And that's what's happening. Shedeur is learning in real time how to balance authenticity with awareness, how to stand up for himself without feeding the fire, how to respond to disrespect without losing control. That moment Mary Kay described, him stopping in his tracks so he wouldn't steal a teammate's spotlight. That's growth. That's awareness. That's maturity that most people aren't giving him credit for. Does he get it right every time? No. The miming thing probably wasn't the best move. But the intent behind it? That shows a thought process beyond his years. Mary Kay said it best. These guys are young, and it doesn't always play out the way they think it will. That's the truth. Shedeur thought silence would keep the focus on Dylan Gabriel. He miscalculated, but at least he was thinking about it. Now, let's look at the bigger picture. Shedeur Sanders is in a position most high-profile college quarterbacks never experience. He's not the starter. He's not even the backup. He's QB3. For a player with his pedigree, that's humbling. But as Mary Kay said, that's the challenge. Believing you're good enough when the depth chart says otherwise. Staying patient when the noise says you're being forgotten. But the players who make it, they use that time to grow. They stay ready. They wait. Because in the NFL, opportunity always comes. And Mary Kay believes Shedeur will be ready. I hope he gets a fair chance somewhere to maximize his skills. She's watching him grind. Frustrated but not defeated, impatient but not disruptive, learning while the world watches. That's what makes this story so compelling. Shedeur isn't some random practice squad player. He's a former Heisman candidate, Deion Sanders' son, a national brand. And yet, right now, he's third string. That tension between who he was and where he is the real story. That's why a silent press conference became national news. That's why everyone's talking. So let's end with this. Do you think Shedeur Sanders was being immature with the miming? Or do you think he was being strategic? Was Rex Ryan out of line? And does Shedeur deserve a real shot? Or should he earn it from the bottom like everyone else? Because here's my take. I think Shedeur Sanders is handling an impossible situation better than most people would. He's 23. He's never been a backup. He's under a microscope no other third-stringer faces. And yeah, the miming wasn't perfect. But it sparked a bigger conversation about how we treat young players, about how the media spins narratives about accountability. Mary Kay Cabot, one of the most credible reporters in the game, came out and said it. She believes in Shedeur. She wants him to succeed. And honestly, so do I. Not because of his name, not because of his father, but because he's putting in the work, showing awareness, and handling a brutal situation with more restraint than people realize. So Rex Ryan can keep talking. The critics can keep circling. But the truth is, Shedeur Sanders isn't going anywhere. He's too talented, too driven, too focused. And when his number gets called, whether in Cleveland or somewhere else, he'll be ready. The real question is, will the people who doubted him be ready to admit they were wrong? This story isn't over. It's just beginning. And whether you love him or not, one thing's for sure. Shedeur Sanders is one of the most fascinating players to watch right now. Not just for what he does on the field, but for how he handles everything off it. If you want to keep up with this story, the Browns, the QB battle, and every twist that comes next, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the conversation. Because this is far from finished.